expert.
Okay, welcome back to the January 15th, 2014 Newmarket Budget Committee. We're moving on to the school operating budget and warrant articles. Just a reminder again, Dave Foltz is joining us by phone. And let's see, we're going to try to go in order because I think the warrants are numbered, at least on the handouts that we got the other night. So we will skip warrant article 1 though, which is the school bond. As we discussed, they're having a public hearing on Tuesday evening, and we can talk at the end of this meeting tonight when we want to reconvene to vote on that. And someone was suggesting maybe we could meet that night after the public hearing if you want, or we can pick another night next week. But we do have to do it next week prior to January. It has to be done next week, basically. No, before the 27th. So sometime next week, I think we can vote on it. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay, so moving on to warrant article 2, the total operating budget, which was the yellow sheet from the other night, if you still have that. And the general fund operating budget request is $15,861,963, which is what we will vote on, the same up and down, whatever we do. And then the total budget, of course, will be higher than that on the warrant, just so everybody understands that. Okay, do we have a motion regarding the school operating budget? Cliff?
I'll make a motion to accept the school operating budget as presented.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Michael, second. Okay, let me just write that down. Okay, discussion.
Ellen?
Russ.
Repeat the number, because I'm looking at the warrant article, which is 16 million.
Right, remember this was a little confusing last year too, and I did clarify this with Christine today. So the general fund operating budget, which is the budget that the budget committee recommends or puts forth, is $15,861,963, which was what the school presented to us during our process. But there is the additional funds, which are essentially sort of pass through, correct?
Food
and
service and federal
food
grants.
service and federal grants, and that brings the total warrant, which has to be passed by the voters, of $16,647,363. But we are voting on the general fund operating budget, which is that lower amount. Is that clear to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
And that was what your motion was.
Yeah.
Is that correct, Cliff?
Well, I guess to clarify, for each of the warrant articles that are relevant, the Budget Committee recommendation will appear on the warrant. So
We need to vote on the warrant article, not on.
Yeah.
on the total,
Total, yeah.
Yeah, and
with the
total's been presented.
consideration in mind that the total includes the operating budget and then I'll call them the other pass-through pieces.
Okay, I would suggest that the motion include both numbers then, so that we're clear what we're voting. Does that make sense to you folks? Because I think in the past we have just voted on that. I know last year I looked back at our vote and it was on a lower number, so.
And that's what the public's going to vote on, is that final number.
Right, so I think, do you want to restate your motion to include both numbers?
Sure.
Will that work for, that makes sense to you?
It'll work.
Yeah,
I just need you to vote on the bottom line.
right,
number.
but,
That's the general operating.
but the voters will see that final number, so maybe we can vote to vote on both numbers. We don't adjust, we don't vote on the 335,400 really, or the 450,000.
Well, we
Apparently.
in essence do, because if I understood this from before, we have revenues equal to
Right.
what's added on for food service and the federal funds. And we also add expenses. So in effect, the expense is in the operating budget, and the operating budget, even though there are special revenues that should exactly offset those two additional expenses, it's still part of the expense budget. So we're voting for 16,647, if I'm understanding it, of which 15,000,008 is what the school is recommending for what they call their general fund operating budget, and the additional 700,000 or 800,000 are additional expenses which are covered by grants.
I understand that, I think it's the Budget Committee's responsibility to vote on the general operating fund budget, so I think to make, we're clear that we just use both numbers in our motion.
I gotta say, if we're voting on the warrant article, which is warrant article 2, which is stated by the school to be 16 million whatever,
Right.
that's what we're voting on, not the 15 million eight.
Don't forget.
Christine, does the MS7, does the forms that we sign, is it the general fund operating budget, or is it the total number? Okay, so we'll vote on the total number then.
Yeah, can
Yeah.
I just want to say, the reason why we should is because that $335,400 is a pass-through that you guys actually put up first, and then it comes reimbursed back as the, I don't know what you call them, meal tickets are sold, or how that revenue comes in. Yeah, federal reimbursement.
Okay.
So,
The younger version of Meals on Wheels.
yeah.
Okay, so I think we're clear then, so let's make sure, Cliff, if you want to restate your motion for the higher, that total number then?
So, yes, I make a motion to recommend Article 2 as presented with a total of $16,647,360, sorry, $16,647,363.
Okay, do we have a second? I think Michael had a second on that, okay. Discussion. Russ?
Clarifying question first, and then I had a comment. This motion is on the operating budget. True?
It's on the total FY15 budget, right?
But the operating budget. The operating budget is a separate warrant article called the operating budget. Does not include all the other warrant articles on fire and safety, et
Right,
cetera.
oh yeah, right, this is
Right.
just the operating budget, right.
Then I have to say, putting aside any comments on the dollar amount, I will go back to the fact that I think the warrant article, as it's stated, significantly misstates what the tax impact is to the people who are voting. And we've said it before, the Budget Committee has agreed, and the school is still insisting on using a 49-cent figure on the operating budget, and their calculation includes using all the cost of the warrant articles for last year, plus adding in the reduction of state taxes, which has nothing to do with our operating budget. The operating expenses go up $1,055,000, which equates to a $1.42 increase. The revenues, at least that were showed before to calculate the 49 cents, went down by 215,000. The combination of those two, $1,055,000 of increased expenses and 215,000 less of revenue, which has a tax impact, because that has to be covered by the taxpayers as well, is 29 cents. So $1.41 or 42 of increased expenses plus 29 cents that we have to cover in less revenue. It's simply a $1.70 increase in the operating budget, which included is said on the yellow sheet of paper that it's gone up $1,055,000. That's put out for the public to see, except $1.70 turns to 49 cents by adding in last year's warrant costs to the operating budget, which have no reason to be there, plus adding in state tax for school, which has nothing to do, and I applaud the state for saving us 3 cents, but that has nothing to do with being included in what the impact is on the operating budget, which this warrant article deals. So my concern that I will voice again is that the operating expense is increasing $1,055,000. The revenues appear to be being reduced from last year by $235,000. The combination of that is putting us at, I think, $1,272,000, to be round numbers, of an increase in what we have to raise in taxes. That equates approximately to a $1.70 impact to the end users. That's irrefutable. If we're adding something else in that has nothing to do with the operating budget, then we're not giving a true comparison to the voters.
Sorry, can I have Christine, she did do a handout, and maybe you could explain how you calculated that 49 cent and why it's not the numbers that Russ spoke about?
Sure. School districts, and per state statute, require us to show the tax impact as the voters approved last year. So the handout that you all have in front of you, I believe everybody has a copy before I begin. Okay. So I'm comparing the FY15 to the FY14. So there's the general fund operating budget, the food service, the federal funds, giving you the the gross appropriation, which is what you just voted on. Then what you do is you would subtract out the general revenues, the food service, and general, food service, and federal revenues. You'd back that out. You'd also take out your adequacy education grant and your state school tax. So you would take those out, which gives you your net. And then what you do with that is you divide that by the assessed value, and that gives you what the new tax rate would be. Now, when we compared the tax rate, we compared against the previous year. And as you know, as you can see in if you go all the way to the bottom, you can see that the previous year's tax rate is $17.37. If nothing else were to pass but my operating budget, your tax impact would be 49 cents. It would not be $1.70. It's 49 cents to the prior year's tax rate.
Blue and then blue.
Christine, is the state mandating that you show it this way?
Yes,
So it's not the school, it's not the school board,
The
it's not
town
the school
does it the
district,
same
it's not
way,
the superintendent.
as you just heard
It's the school
Steve.
district is being mandated by state law to show 49 cents in that manner.
Correct. And the 7 cents you just voted on, the decrease for the town is in the same fashion.
It's unfortunate, I understand, Russ, it is unfortunate, but if the state mandates them to do that, then they must do it.
I am not stating that the operating budget to operating budget is 49 cents.
Correct.
I've been addressed by
Russ?
Blue, can I respond? Yeah, look, I don't care what the state says. And
Well,
if,
unfortunately,
no,
you have
but
to.
let me finish.
Let him finish.
Let me finish.
Let Russ finish.
If the state, in its infinite wisdom, which I won't quibble with, I'll assume people can interpret that better than I can, say, take the operating budget from this year only and compare it to everything you voted on last year, including warrant articles and stuff you don't know about, and come up with a number of 49 cents, then what I would suggest to the school system, saying, this is a state mandated number that we tell you. However, which Steve has commented in his warrant articles as to whether it's up or down, the operating expense has increased $1.70 in the tax rate, even though the state mandates to show us 49. Now, if you want to explain other places that last year we raised $706,000 in fire and safety, and this year you're only asking for 500, therefore your 67-cent increase is actually a 12-cent decrease because you're asking for less money on a warrant article that's not part of the operating budget. I'm fine. Get to 49 cents by being honest about it, but from an operating budget to operating budget, okay, the number is approximately $1.70. We all agree on $1.42 because that's what the expense increase is, and if the $235 in revenue reduction is changed, I don't know how because the number's still 49, but that's how I come up. So to let the school say state mandate to tell you it's going up 49 cents, but that's the overall impact, the actual operating expenses are going up 7.1%, which is what the yellow sheet says. Revenues are going down slightly, and the impact operating budget to operating budget is up $1.70, $1.62, whatever it is. And then taxpayers can understand what they're getting into. And I don't see any reason why it can't
So I
be
guess my question
represented.
would be, you want the school district to go against what state mandates them to do?
Not against.
To show the
Say
wrong
the
number,
state
so
man-
the warrant article gets voted yes, and
I-
doesn't meet the requirements of a warrant
I'm,
article?
excuse me. Say the 49 is state required, and then say, but to educate our voters, the number's actually going up
Actually, what I would
$1.70.
like to see on the warrant article is the total tax impact for the entire budget.
But
which
that's
is,
not the way the
according
warrant
to
articles
Christine,
work.
Which is $18.54.
Okay,
And that
Amy-
would solve everything.
Okay.
Amy had a comment?
Sorry, Amy.
I'm gonna say, you know, I read this a couple of meetings ago, we had this discussion and we thought this, in order to put the tax impact on this, the Article 2 is operating budget. The estimated tax impact of Article 2 operating budget is all it says right there. It doesn't say including warrant articles and this, that, and the other thing, and I'm gonna agree with Russ. Operating budget to operating budget, that is what we're expected to vote on here. Warrant articles are a separate thing, up and down, and I would like to see even on the sheet that we just got, from Christine, you know, midway down the page, to be raised by local tax, operating budget, boom. Fiscal year 14, 10,485, 774, 15, 11,570, 022, there's the 1.055. I'm not gonna disagree with you, I think we're muddying the waters here, we're being asked to vote on a tax, on a total operating budget for Article 2, and show the estimated tax impact of that article. Pretty straightforward to me.
Russ, and then Cliff?
Yeah, if there's a state mandate, and Blue, I'm speaking to you because you raised it, but I'm speaking to everybody. If there's a state mandate on how to say it, I have no problem saying that as it does in the warrant article. Then put an additional line that says, on an operating expense basis to an operating expense basis, the tax rate impact is $1.70. The 49 cents is not accurate from an operating expense, which this deals with. You can add information to educate the public.
Cliff, and then Blue?
In fact, as I recall, the language that's in the warrant is very prescriptive and guided, I guess, by DRA primarily, and adding extra commentary is not allowed.
Look, what I'm simply saying, Cliff, is people ask why things are difficult to believe and who do you trust? And you have $1.1 million increase, 7.1%, which is on the yellow sheet of paper explanation, which every other tax calculation that's done in the town for tax rate divides it by 744 million and simply puts a number. But on the school, we're taking apples, pears, and bananas and calling it operating expense, which it isn't, and you're saying I'm required by law, and I'm saying fine. If that's how the law reads for you guys, then I think it's really stupid, but it's the law. There's nothing that says you can't end up saying, by the way, on a pure operating to operating basis, the tax rate goes up here. By the way, I'll tell you later on where the tax rate goes down, so if the 49 magic is correct. But you're asking people in this town to vote on something. You're trying to educate them. We voted a year or two ago, I thought at the general election, to be able to say what the tax rate impact is. And this is not the tax rate impact of the operating expense. That's what it purports to be. It even goes as far in your warrant article on the yellow sheets that you drafted, says parenthetically, it includes no other warrant articles for this year. Yet you're comparing it to a number from last year that included all the warrant articles. It's not apples to apples. We are misrepresenting this to the public, and that's my issue.
I think Blue, and then, or did you go already, Cliff? No, Cliff
did.
and then Blue, or
I
Blue.
have two questions. One, this is my first year on the Budget Committee, so FY14, when there was a 13-cent tax impact, what was voted on? What was on the warrant article? Was it 13 cents?
I have no idea, Blue.
So
I'm telling you,
so unfortunately, a precedent has been set by DRA.
let's not go back into the precedent as we did in the beginning of this meeting, which
That's
is
gonna be
let's
another
change the
comment.
precedent when we're better
But number
comments.
two, if we do, Christine, if we do add anything to that warrant article and any of that language said, is that warrant article valid? Will DRA accept anything like that?
You can add, yes, you can add certain language, and they will accept it. But you have to be very careful, because we're not comparing apples to apples. I'm calculating the tax impact. The tax impact and how you calculate that is based on your prior year's tax rate. What Russ is talking about is operating budget to operating budget numbers strictly. If my operating budget were to pass, okay, my tax rate would be 49 cents on what you're currently paying, and that's it. Doesn't take into consideration any other warrant articles that exist that you vote on, okay? If you pass it, what Russ is saying is that it would go up $1.70. Your tax rate would not go up $1.70 if you passed just the operating budget. It's 49 cents compared to the prior year.
And if I can just ask some clarifying questions. So let's, the cost to run the school last year was the operating budget plus the warrant articles that were passed.
Correct.
That's what it cost to run the school last year. So in my mind, there's a number there. Whatever that total was, it's probably on your sheet.
16, the total cost.
Yeah.
Gross appropriations at the bottom.
So if the voters this year only passed this operating budget and said no to all the other warrant articles, those warrant articles that were passed last year go away. Because a lot of them were like we voted fire and life safety.
It doesn't go away. You've already had the expense. You've already raised
No,
the
no, I'm not
taxes.
saying it goes away. We don't have that expense this year because we're not
Correct.
voting for it. And so that's why the operating budget, because what did we pass last year for fire and life safety? Was it?
706, 907.
Okay. So if we don't pass fire and life safety this year, that 700,000 is not added to
Correct.
this year's budget. So that's being absorbed. That's where the operating budget is sort of absorbing
Correct.
those costs, and that's why it's 49 cents and not the $1.70, because the total cost to run the school last year was that total amount of the operating
16.
budget plus the warrant articles.
16,468,135.
So if you add just an operating budget this year, all those other things that we voted on that were one time that year go away, and we add the operating budget,
Correct.
and that's the impact.
Yes,
That's why it's
what Russ
49
is
cents.
saying is accurate, that a $1.55 million increase is being offset by the warrant articles that were passed last year. That is correct. But when you calculate the tax rate, you calculate it on the current or prior year's tax rate number, which you're currently paid, as we all just paid our tax bill, well, you all paid in Newmarket, was $17.37. So if you pass warrant Article 2, you will have a 49-cent increase to that, which would make it $17.86 to operate the school.
Cliff, I think you had a comment.
It just that, Russ, I appreciate your frustration, I really do. And no matter how you state it, it's difficult to interpret, and it's really why people need to do their homework and go to the deliberative session and public hearings.
And so the result of that is what? You're sticking with the 49 cents because you think it's representative and it's the way the game's played?
I resent the fact that you call this a game.
It is if what we're trying to do as a budget committee, and based on a warrant article that's solely looking at operating expense, is comparing operating expense to operating expense and compare.
That's not what the
fire-
that's not what the warrant article is doing. It's comparing it to the cost to run the school last year.
It's comparing it to the operating expense last year. And what Christine is saying, from what I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but when I calculate what the tax impact is, I add all kinds of things from last year that had nothing to do with the operating expense, because that's what the state requires me to do. So, in fact, we all agree the expense is going up $1,055,000. The revenue is lower. The numbers I used that you gave me before said 235,000. So the operating budget is $1,271,000 higher than it was. That's a fact. I'm not commenting
Right,
on whether
and
it's
that's
too
on the
high.
yellow sheet.
It's on the yellow sheets, but not in the warrant article. Okay, what's in the warrant article is it's 16 million and your tax impact's only 49, and it's comparing apples to pears. All I'm suggesting, and I have no problem with this sheet of paper that was created tonight that tried to explain to everyone here that last year $706,000 in fire and life safety, let's just say ballpark, equated to $1. And the school is only asking for $500,000 this year. So actually, it cost you $1 last year because it was 706, but since we're only asking for 500,000, it's only costing you 67 cents. We've saved you 33 cents by asking for less money on that warrant article. That's attaching a warrant article to a warrant article, okay? It's attaching the operating budget to the operating budget. It all should come out at 49 cents, the same place, but you're explaining it by the pieces of the puzzle. This way, you're taking an operating budget, saying it's going up $1 million, whatever, let's say $1.3 million, my number, including less revenue. But by miracles, it's only a 49-cent increase. And I think that misinforms the public. Regardless of what my opinion is on whether it's a good operating budget or a bad operating budget, I'm
Right,
simply talking
but
about.
If that is the only article that passes.
And Christine suggests that, yes, you can add language.
If that's the only article that passes this year, our tax rate will go up by 49 cents.
No, if that's the only article that passes, the operating budget would go up $1.70, and you would save $1.35 from last year's warrant articles, because none were passed.
Last year's warrant articles are gone. Once the vote is
gone.
done and taken, and we approve the operating budget as a town, last year's warrant articles do not exist anymore. They're gone.
Drew, I mean, Blue, I
But you can
totally,
compare
I
them.
totally
Wait, we need to-
agree, but
hold
the
on, hold
point
on.
is, what do you say to
Ask a
the
question.
public?
Hold on, I just want
I
to
just
make
wanna
sure
make-
I got this clear.
Yeah.
We have a tax rate that we all pay right now. If we only pass the school operating budget, forget the town part, the school part, if we only pass the operating budget, our tax rate is only going to go up by 49 cents.
That is correct, and it is the same practice of which the town is doing.
That's really important, because I think we're getting some mixed messages here. Granted, if we support the other warrant
It's the
articles,
exact same wording. They have a little bit extra sentence in theirs. It's the exact same. It's compared to the prior year.
okay,
so-
Blue, thank
To
you.
suffice,
let you all know that. Same
Christine, if you could stay,
calculation.
if you could stay up there, please. To suffice Russ's quandary, is there language that we could put in the warrant article that says a 49-cent increase based off of last year's total tax impact of 1737? Is there a way to do language in a warrant article like that?
There is, but you would have to address the school board. I do not have the authority to make that change. But you can.
Okay. Thank you.
Dana? Dana?
I am totally confused. If you have an increase of over $1 million, it's not a rocket science to figure out that that has to have an impact higher than 49 cents, if only the budget is passed. So, you know, I don't care about the wording and what it should say in the warrant. Well, I won't say I don't care. That is a concern. But I'm more concerned trying, as the average person out on the street, when they see the increase in the school's budget of over $1 million and saying the impact is only 49 cents without any other further clarification, you're setting yourself up for that budget to be defeated. So the school board, I would suggest, make some notations or some footnote or something so the public can see that, because you guys are setting yourself up. Because the way I'm feeling right now, I'm not voting for this budget.
Maybe at the deliberative session, you can show, I think the confusing part is people aren't seeing that if we only vote for the operating budget, those warrant articles that we passed last year are no longer part of the budget. And so those numbers go away. The 700,000 is no longer in
For
the total.
731,000.
Never, is no longer in the total operating budget. So the total operating budget's going to come down because those warrant articles weren't supported. And it is going up by a lot more, but it's getting offset. And I understand you have to look at the total cost of running the school last year.
It's total gross appropriation to it's your total gross appropriation from last year
Right.
compared to what you're gonna pass this year. So everything that you have, okay, so I have to have a food service part, I have grants, I have an operating budget, and then you pass warrant articles. All of that together netted 16 million and change, okay? So when you compare that to just my operating budget, okay, from 16 million, and the new budget is 15 million, okay? The difference is what is gonna net if you just approve the operating budget.
So the 49 cent, again, I hear what you're saying, but I want to get it in my
But
head.
if you look at the sheet, follow the sheet.
It's going to be an increase of 49 cents if only the operating budget is passed.
That's correct.
However, is it going to increase, and what would it increase to if all warrant articles were passed?
I gave it to you at the very bottom. If everything were to pass,
On the bottom
That'd
of,
be a $1.17 increase?
correct. Okay, so your new tax rate for
This
the
is-
school would be
look.
1874.
Wait a
I'm,
minute.
fine, I'll hold
I'm
up
done.
my hand.
Thank you.
Okay, Russ.
It's this one now.
I
Down the
hear
bottom.
from a lot, I'm trying to do this for the benefit of the school, okay? And for the benefit of the taxpayers who have to understand what they're doing. I understand the mechanics, but what you're simply saying, you can say in this warrant article, and the school board can do that, as you said, amend the language. So maybe that's what I'm making a motion to do, that says, I don't mind you ending with a 49 cent once people know it's including $1 million of warrant articles last year and none from this year, so that's where the $1.70 goes to 49 cents. But say the operating budget is going up X, the warrant articles are this much, and this is what's happening with your tax rate on these moving pieces, because you're asking people to vote on each warrant article. Asking them to vote on the first operating expense warrant article and including a shield of $1 million in expenses to reduce what the tax impact is, I think is being disingenuous, even though it may be exactly required by the state. So if the school wanted to present it with two sets of numbers, the state's required one, and then talk to what the operating expense increase is, further offset by reductions in warrant article requests, that's fine, that's the reality.
But just to understand that if, it's hard to, as I think someone said, this is complicated to explain. So if,
Operating budget to operating budget is a difficult concept for people to explain,
so-
apples to apples,
here, what I'm trying to say,
okay?
you're saying that the operating budget is actually a $1.70 increase. So if you tell people that, they're going to think their taxes are going to go up by $1.70 if they vote for the operating budget. And that's not what's going to happen. It's going to go up by 49 cents. So I'm just saying, it's hard to explain, and people just have to keep listening and looking at the information to see that, yes, yeah, they're asking for $1 million. You can see it right there. It's $1 million plus going up in the operating budget. And why is it only 49 cents? Because the total cost to run the school last year was X.
Ellen, it's perfect for, everybody's going to do what they're going to do. I'm going to continue to say, I think basically telling the taxpayers what they're voting on in this it seems to be this warrant article. Every other warrant article works fine, okay? If you want to look at fire and life safety and say, if you vote on this, this will add 67 cents, if that's what it says, and my memory's pretty good, as you know, okay? And by the way, if you vote yes, you'll add 67 cents to the tax rate. But if you vote no, you'll save 94 cents, which last year's warrant article you put in, then that's fine. You're understanding it's a fire and life safety issue and what you're doing on fire and life safety. It's only, it seems, this operating expense is, let me add in every other factor that affected last year's taxes and compare it to what your operating expense is. And I think that is just, even if it's state regulated, that's a deceptive way to be able to present an operating budget to the public.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, so we have a motion to recommend the budget as stated. Do we have no amendments to that?
May I make a motion about asking the school board, or do we have to deal with your first thing first? Because if the issue is the school board can do it, but Christine doesn't have the power, I'd like to be able to make a motion asking the school board to amend,
The actual language of the warrant article?
to add descriptors which will educate the voters.
Can I just comment?
Yeah, do we have to then come back and vote again on it? Do you know?
No, because
we're
it would
just
be up
voting
to
on the
it
number.
would be up to the school
We're just
board if
voting on the
they
number.
wanted to change it.
Okay.
But I just wanted to go on record that this is a practice that's been happening for all schools, all towns, and even the town of Newmarket. We are doing the same practice of what you just saw from Mr. Fournier. So you're asking us to change it, to be different, and to state the facts incorrectly. The facts are correct. The facts are educating the voters that if you pass my operating budget, your taxes are going to go up 49 cents on what you're currently paying, which is $17.37. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that at the public.
Great, okay, thank you. So Russ, what exactly did you want to make a motion on?
Well, I'm making a motion for the school board to do a better job in explaining the 49 cents, not to break the law, but to simply say from an operating basis to operating basis, there's this tax rate impact or this dollar amount impact. However, comparing based on the requirements, it only turns into 49 cents if you don't vote on any of the other warrant articles.
Okay, I
I
think
mean,
that-
whatever it is, I'm just asking for clarity to the
I think that might be a
voters.
separate motion
think it
unrelated
is.
to the budget.
That's fine.
So I think we might want to vote on the budget first, and then we can have a motion regarding language related to the warrant article, because we're not, unless somebody makes a motion regarding the actual number, we can call the roll on the actual number. Does anybody want to make any? Hearing none, I will call roll on the operating budget, as I think Cliff made the motion and Michael seconded. On the number as written.
Aye.
Cliff, aye. Okay. Dave Foltz?
Aye.
Lou Foster?
Aye.
Dana Glennon?
Nay.
Drew Kefeber?
Okay,
Aye.
vote that.
Michael Lang?
Aye.
Larry Pickering?
Aye.
Judy Ryan?
Nay.
Russ Simon?
Nate?
Ellen Snyder, aye. Amy Thompson?
Nay.
Okay, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, well, 4 recommended by the Budget Committee. Okay, now, Russ, did you want to make another motion regarding, I believe, the language of the warrant article or the fact sheet?
I have no legal basis to say anything. I'm making a motion that what I think is a misrepresentation to the voter, even if it applies with state regulations, that the school board do something to clarify what the operating, because that's what it addresses, the operating expense impact is from year to year. And I'll leave it in their hands. They can vote no, they can vote yes. I've had my time, thank you for listening to me, but I personally think it really sucks to the voter.
So was that a motion or you just making a statement?
I'm making a motion to have the school board consider amending the description on this warrant article to identify the true impact from year to year on the operating budget,
Okay.
which is what it says it does.
Okay, Ellen, you got that language of that? Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Amy, second. Okay, discussion? Blue?
Russ, do you need language in the warrant article itself, or do you need more language on the yellow sheet handout for, that goes to every meeting, every deliberative session, every voting? These will be handed out, and it's not clear on here, I grant it, I understand.
And
Do you
the
need it
answer
actually
is,
in the warrant article itself?
the reason I say that, Blue, is because we specifically passed a warrant article on both the town and the school that said the public demands to know what the tax rate impact is of a particular warrant article.
And to me, they're saying that, it's gonna be 49 cents per thousand, a tax
I
increase.
understand, but I
So I'm
think,
asking you, do you need language in the warrant article itself, or are you asking the school board to do more due diligence for their public hearings and for the handouts?
I'm asking,
Which it really doesn't make a difference.
personally, well, I get back to the same thing. Yes, I would like the warrant article, because that's what people are gonna read. I've seen the yellow sheet, besides having to put my reading glasses on in the 42 boxes. 7/8 of the numbers are there. Okay, there's an eighth that isn't as to what last year's operating expenses were and what last year's revenues were, because there's a revenue gap as well. And I think it's real simple to explain to the public, me being one of them, hey, revenue's down, expenses are up, here's what the magic number is, okay? And I think this approach fails.
I completely understand what you're saying, but you're asking the school board to kind of do things differently than what the DRA is telling them to do. They can add information, but it could be added very limited information, according to Christine.
It's up to the school board. I'm making my point, and they can
Just
keep it the
discussing
way
it.
it is. I'm just making a motion as to what the budget committee would say, should the school board consider
All right,
being a
changes
little
to the-
more informative or not.
The motion was changes to the warrant article, so.
Yep.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, very good. We'll call roll. Cliff Chase.
Nay, I think it's,
Okay, sorry, you can't, sorry, no discussion, vote. Dave Foltz.
Nay.
Lou Foster.
Nay.
Dana Glennon.
Aye.
Drew Kefeber.
aye.
Michael Lang.
Aye.
Larry Pickering.
Aye.
Judy Ryan.
Aye.
Russ Simon.
Aye.
Ellen Snyder, aye. Amy Thompson.
Aye.
Motion passed.
8-3, motion passes. And just so I'm clear, this is a recommendation to the school board to discuss. We don't have to revote because it's a change in wording and not the number. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. 3, life, junior high, school fire and life safety. Pink? Okay, this is to raise and appropriate the sum of $500,000 to be added to the construction of a new school building and renovation of existing school buildings for Fire and Life Safety Code Compliance Capital Reserve Fund, established in 2012, recommended by the school board 5-0, tax impact 67 cents per thousand. I think are we all pretty familiar with this? Do we need any explanation? Can we make a motion regarding it? Cliff?
I'd like to move that we support this as presented.
Okay, we have a second.
I'll second that.
Drew, second. Discussion. Russ?
I'm actually raising my hand, so I'm trying to play.
Good job tonight.
Obviously, I'm all for correcting fire and safety, fire, whatever, issues. But I'm trying to track through the pieces, because what concerns me about, again, informing the public is we seem to be constrained to say, here's what the impact is in this year, okay, where the things we vote on may have an impact for 25 or 30 years. And if I remember correctly, and I'm sure I'm going to be off on this, I thought like when we started fire and life safety, it was like $1 million or $1.1 million, and we voted last year for we voted 2 years ago for some amount. And then last year it was, gee, we're going to need another $1 million or $1.1 million. Let's take 706,000, and we'll push off 300,000 to the next year. And now we're reloading again. I'm not saying construction costs and new things aren't found, but that $1.1 million from last year that we were going to only have at $300,000 or $400,000 is now $1.8 million, of which we're asking for $500,000 this year. And if construction costs don't change, another $700,000 or $800,000 next year for fire and life safety. And that's what I'm just trying to understand, what's been presented and what the costs are, and in reading the description of this warrant article. So all things being equal, if nothing else happened, operating, new school, whatever, and fire and life safety was the only issue, we're asking for $500,000 this year and defer asking for the additional $700,000 or $800,000 that the current forecast says for next year.
Yeah, Dr. Hayes, if you'd like to step up.
Yes, this year we took a look at the remaining projects that we have to decide when can we do them. The total cost was estimated at $1.85 million, and we ascertained that we were able to do some next summer and some the following summer. All has to be completed by the end of the following summer. And so then we needed to set aside approximately $1.1 million, which would cover three aspects. One is the technical design of next summer's project, so that we can then go out to bid, and then do the work in the summer, and then also plan the engineering for the following summer. So that's what the $1.1 million does. And then you're right, the following year is approximately $700,000 or $800,000
Okay, so
to take care of that.
I don't know 3 years ago, but if I just looked at last year, this year, and next year, last year we asked for $706,000, which was approved and was
Right.
part of the tax rate.
Right.
This year, we're asking for $500,000, and next year, we're going to be asking for $750,000 to round up, though next year we may end up with, oh gee, we found more things, or the cost of construction in that year went up, so we're asking for $2 million for next year. That's a wild card, but at the moment, you're saying, we know we
Yeah, I
asked for
think-
at least
I think-
$750,000.
I think the real indicator was the science egress project. What we started out with looked like approximately a $400,000 project was over $700,000 because of the discovery of what you find behind the walls. And so with that experience, that's what has now driven this cost estimate.
Okay.
So we think we're in safer territory with this. The $500,000 gets combined with approximately $600,000 that remains in that fund to give us the $1.1 million.
Okay, great, thank you. I just want to make sure I was understanding.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, I think we can call the roll on this one then. Life safety, Cliff Chase.
Aye.
Dave Foltz.
Aye.
Lou Foster.
Aye.
Dana Glennon.
Aye.
Drew Kiefaber,
Aye.
Michael Lang,
Aye.
Larry Pickering,
Aye.
Judy Ryan,
Aye.
Russ Simon,
Aye.
Ellen Snyder, aye. Amy Thompson,
Aye.
11-0 recommended by the Budget Committee. Okay. We're doing good. Article 4, retaining unassigned fund balance. I'll read this one. To see if the school district will vote to authorize indefinitely until rescinded to retain year-end unassigned general funds in an amount not to exceed in any fiscal year 2.5% of the current fiscal year's net assessment in accordance with RSA 198-4-B2. Such fund balance retained may only be used to reduce the tax rate or for emergencies to be approved by the Department of Education under RSA 3211, recommended by the School Board 5-0, no tax impact. Do you want to, would it help to have them speak a little bit to this, or should we? Yeah, you want to explain a little bit about this?
It's similar to what the town does in being able to reserve unreserved fund balance. So what it's saying is we would take our net assessment and we'd calculate 2.5% of that. And at any given point, so I gave you an example. So our net assessment for 2.5 is the $303,036. Okay, so that would be 2.5% of our net assessment. And it would be at the school board's discretion to keep any amount up to that dollar amount and put into a retained fund balance. So we could act upon that throughout the year, any part of the year, if we had an emergency to expend. And if we did, we would have to have school board authority, the budget committee authority, and the commissioner of education's authority. The only other way you can use that fund is to help reduce the taxes. Similar to what the town does is they can take it out of the reserve to help offset some of their tax impact. So we can use it to reduce taxes. Those are the two purposes and the only two purposes you can use the fund for.
Okay, I think we should maybe have a motion, and then we can have discussion by the board. How's that sound? That's usually how we've been doing it, so I just wanted to sort of stay with that. So can I have a motion on Article 4?
I'll make a motion to recommend the Article 4, retaining unassigned fund balance.
Okay, second?
Second.
Michael, second. Okay, now discussion. I think it was Dana and then Cliff.
My question is, what is the difference of this particular warrant article? I understand the concept, but what is the difference between that and, say, a trust fund for surplus and putting it into certain accounts?
You mean like the special ed or the repairs and maintenance?
Right.
They're specifically designed only for those purposes.
But it's
This purpose is really geared for emergency purposes and to help to reduce the tax rate.
Okay, so that
Which
money,
gives us the authority to help offset some of the tax impact that the school district would have, just like the town does.
okay, but my question here, again, further into this, is if you're taking 2.5% of the surplus,
Up to.
up to 2.5% of the surplus, would not the money in that surplus be able to go into other accounts automatically without setting up these surplus trust funds?
No, you can only use the money in that retained fund balance for emergencies to expend
Okay,
or
you
to reduce
said that.
taxes. Those two purposes only.
Okay, and who makes the decision to put the money towards reducing the taxes?
The school board,
The school board does that.
yes. At no point can you have more than 2.5% in that fund.
Okay, that's
Okay.
the key, no more.
That is the key.
Okay,
And the school board doesn't have to take the full amount. They can take any portion.
Portion of it.
which they choose to.
I'm not done. Can that money, like you said, it has to have certain approval levels, but
Emergencies.
emergency. Now, if you had a situation with the special ed program and you needed additional funding, it
Correct.
could come from that source.
That is correct. That is one of the emergencies.
That's a good thing.
Cliff and then Russ.
So this is to address one of the differences between how school districts are legally, as legal entities versus a municipality, where the school district can't hold a fund balance year over year. And the law that passed in order for this to exist, I think occurred within the last year, maybe two. So this is a very new program, and it's probably appearing on town warrants across the state for the first time either this year or last.
Russ, and then I had a question.
Yeah, a couple things just to make sure I'm understanding. Okay. And sorry, I like to attach things together. So in the past, when the school is put forward and it has two of those warrant articles in here on the technology fund and another fund that says if there's a surplus at the end of the year, so we don't spend what we've approved in the operating budget, that up to $50,000 would go, 25% of that surplus up to $50,000 would go to technology. This fund is being funded the same way. It can only be funded out of surplus,
That's correct.
okay? And the cap that it can't exceed is 2.35% or something like that?
2.5.
2.5. Haven't locked that in yet. In which case, let's just say, for the sake of argument, we have this $16 million budget we're talking about, and miracle upon miracles, we underspend by 3 or 4% of that budget, because something good happens. Then you would be able to take 25% of that surplus, let's say 3% is $500,000, who knows, and say, gee, up to 25% of that, limited up to 50,000, goes into the technology fund, 25% limited up to 50,000 goes into the second fund. Now we're down at 300,000 left. Oh, gee, we have 300,000 we can go in and fund this up to if that's what our cap limit is, and it's fully funded. And then any surplus in the future couldn't go into that fund. Is that the way it basically works? Super.
Warrant articles that you have, other additional warrant articles for trust funds go first. They take precedent. So like we have 3 this year for, 2 this year. We have special ed and we have the repair and maintenance. So in this case, those articles would get funded first, and then it would always be the fund balance retainage.
Right, but
last.
only 50%. You're limiting it to 50%, 50,000 or 25%.
Correct.
So by taking only 2 instead of 4, which you used to, we now have 2 that says takes 25% of any surplus up to 50 grand, put it here. Take 25%, put it here. The other 50%, which would have potentially gone back to the taxpayers as a credit against next year's taxes, is going to be saying, oops, no, up to $323,000, I can take any additional surplus and put it in this new account.
At the discretion of the school board.
Okay, and then who decides when to spend it? Is it only the school board? I thought it was the town vote or something. Okay, so this is full discretion of the school board?
The school board would then authorize the administrative staff, if they wanted to use any portion of that fund that they already had to reduce the taxes with.
Okay.
So that would be a discussion that we'd have.
Thank you. And I'd like to make a comment on it,
Sure.
if it's discussion, but thank you. I appreciate it and understand it at least. I have a concern strategically about the fact we have lots of issues this year, including a new school coming up, including operating budget increases. We'll know within a month or two where all that shakes out. And I'm certainly concerned about fire and life safety. I feel uncomfortable in looking and approving this warrant article this year and some of the others, because I think we're really at a hinge point that we have to decide how we come through this. If there's a new school that gets voted on, then everything is going to be heading in that direction. Fire and life safety may or may not be changed as a result of that. How much funds are expended and where. Life changes. And if it doesn't get approved, life's going to change to some degree as well. And so I think some of these issues, I would recommend giving them a rest for a year, okay, especially with special ed increasing and all these other things that are happening. And let's see where we come out in a year, and we can continue to address them. But I would be uncomfortable in starting a new fund this year.
Blue and then Cliff. I don't know who was who.
I understand what you're saying, Russ. My only comment to that is, if I may ask a question, Christine, the special ed balance is $244,778. You're going to spend all that probably? Is that correct?
Probably not.
Not?
So,
No, I'm going to be
sorry,
doing an update, a special ed.
just to
education
comment
update.
that's, I know Russ, you kind of got into the articles, but we're really still focused on Article 4?
Oh, no, it was more of,
A good part of that
they're
is
going to spend a
be-
big part of their special education trust fund this year. if
It's
this
not
fund was
there.
there right now, they wouldn't have to deplete it down to, say, $1. They'd be able to pull from both to pay special education, because one of the restrictions of using this fund balance is for an emergency, say, in special education. So we can either deplete one fund and not have another, or we can fund a little to both and have a good, fair balance. And that's just one way of looking at it. I understand exactly what you're saying.
I totally agree. Special ed's not even there this
Can I
year.
just make one comment?
Yeah, and then Cliff.
I just want to make sure that the general public understands that it's the intent of the school board to get the language passed. It's not the intent to try to take every penny of our fund balance and put it away right now. Because once the language is passed, it stays in effect until it's rescinded. Okay? So that's the intent of the board, is that we just want to be able to have the opportunity that if we were in any given year, had a fund balance, that we could then retain it to help reduce the tax rate. If we also had a special education situation like we did this year, I can tell you, if we didn't have some of the attrition that we had, I'd be tapping into that special ed trust fund and then some, because we had substantial special ed impact. And this would be able to give us that assistance that we would need, similar to what the towns are doing.
Cliff, and then Russ, Judy, sorry, did I miss you, Judy, a while ago? Sorry, can I let Judy go, because I think I missed her earlier, sorry.
Christine clarified something for me, which was my question, and Russ did, that the articles, basically Articles 5 and 6 come first before this, that they will deplete any fund balance before we even get to anything that would be left over.
Only 50%, Judy.
Yeah, well, 50%. What concerns me with this article is that if it is passed, it's indefinite until rescinded. There's no process here as to how it's rescinded.
Rescind it, yeah.
And if there is any, my understanding is that if there is any fund balance at this point in time, it can be used to reduce the tax rate.
Well, right now, to reduce the tax rate, yes.
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Right. So,
Any excess.
I would not support this.
I think it was Cliff, and then Russ, and then back to Dana.
Thank you. The school board, if I can represent them, is very interested in doing everything, all of our expenses this year from the operating budget, and I would be very surprised if we have much of a fund balance come to the end. To Russ's point, to give it a rest, and only to tread slightly into the upcoming warrant articles, there are at least 2 of our capital reserve funds that exist, that we've listed in the past, that we've eliminated to address, I think, Russ's concerns. As far as rescinding, the process of rescinding Article 4 would be by action of the town meeting, which is the same action that puts it in place. So it would just be a matter of another warrant article that said that that fund would be dissolved.
I think it was Russ and then Dana.
Yeah. 2 things. If, you know, by now I ask a lot of questions because that's how I learn. If we were to fund this balance of 300 and some odd thousand, 2.5%, you said, of the operating budget, that would not have to be used to credit the taxpayer unless the school board chose to say it's funded at its maximum, $350,000. We're going to use some of that to reduce taxes this year, but only at the school board's request. The only thing that would automatically potentially go back to the taxpayer is if that fund was fully funded at 2.5%, and any additional savings that the school board had in that year, you'd say, well, I can't put any more money into this general reserve. I have to automatically give it back to the taxpayer because everything else is filled. Okay. The second question I had, and it's understanding, you mentioned special, and I'm delighted if we're reducing what we thought was a crisis in special ed, but we've just voted on an operating budget whose 70% of what the increase was for special ed. If there's some relief that's happening on special ed that affects the operating budget, that 70% of the increase was based on special ed, then I'd like to hear about it, because we've just voted on an operating budget that's going up. We knocked that to death, $1.3 million, and at least half of that or more is special ed. So is there any relief there?
Well, I wasn't prepared tonight to talk about special education, but the general fund, as we stand right now, we did have some unanticipated revenues that have come in recently. We also had a lot of changes over in staff. So when I'm looking at it, and we're doing our due diligence with the current budget, we are still going to have to tap into the special ed trust fund. I do not have that hard figure for you right now because it's a moving, it's a very fluid area, but I can tell you that we are going to probably hit a large portion of it still right now.
Understand.
And I have, you know, a revenue report that I will be doing an update on.
And does that have any impact for next year's budget?
It does not change next year's budget at all because we're anticipating new students for next year. So that's still above and beyond what I currently have because we have new students that are coming in that we know about.
Dana?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what both Russ and Judy had said. I have some concerns on this also, on approving this, and basically where I'm coming from is if it said somewhere, and I don't know if it has to come from the school board, saying that, you know, that 2.5% that they can capture would go primarily to help reduce the taxes, I would feel comfortable with that because I
That's
don't.
state law.
Okay, it is state law, but I'm just saying how I feel about it. That's part of the reason why I'm having a difficult time, you know, voting in favor of this. I still haven't, at this point, decided yet. But, you know, if there was something that the school board could say, you know, our primary concern would be to help reduce the taxes. And if they can say that, fine. If they can't, that's a different thing. But I have not seen, since I've been on this budget committee, any reduction in the school side of the budget. It is always, always, always going up. At least on the town side, we see some stability. We see where they're holding the line. I'm not saying you're not trying. I'm just saying we don't see it. So I and others as taxpayers are really saying to ourselves, when does the taxpayer get a relief on the tax rate? I know when I ran years ago to be on the council, my thought process was, we're never probably ever going to be able to reduce the tax rate, but if we can help stabilize the tax rate, that should be our goal.
And that's
And-
exactly what this does, Dana.
Yeah,
It helps us
I know you.
stabilize
I
the
know
tax
you're
rate.
saying that. I know you're saying that, but I've not seen anything from the school side.
We don't have that control to be able to do that.
Okay.
It
You
creates
just
a
heard-
nest
Let me finish.
Sure.
You just heard Steve say tonight, if the motion had passed on reduction of $100,000, he could live with that. We're not hearing anything from the school side. It's always an increase, and whether, you know, I mean, you have to do it, you have to do it, but the taxpayer is not seeing that, and that's my point, why I'm having a hard time, you know, voting in favor.
Blue, and then I wanted to say something.
The only comment I have, the last part, Dana, is that the town actually has revenue. They register cars, they give deeds, they do all that. The only revenue the school has is coming from state aid, or our taxes, that's it.
And grants that they
So,
could write.
and grants that they could write, but they're not sitting out there with a wallet just having
I'm not
cash put into it.
suggesting
You look at that.
Yeah, Dr. Hayes, you want to
I
provide
just
some
want to
comment?
comment to what Dana had to say. Since 2011, we've cut almost 16 positions. Saying that this town can't see us making an effort, I just can't accept that. 16 positions were cut, and that's significant. And we really have tried to tighten our belt in doing that. In terms of looking at how the town manages its money in the school district, I think you know that salary and benefits for the town only amounts to perhaps 60% of their budget. For us, it's 80% of our budget. And that's a big difference between how they manage theirs and we manage ours.
I'd like to respond to that, if I can. Dr. Hayes, thank you for that explanation, but also, you must admit, whether it's your fault or whoever's fault is negotiating with the teacher's contract, we're seeing an excess of $320,000 in longevity. You don't see that on the town side. That's part of the issue here. So reduction in the budget, that's what I'm referring to. There are things that could be done. It is the responsibility of the school board to negotiate on, and I'm not saying they never did in good faith, but somehow that has to be reduced, and the people who are in those positions to receive those monies have got to understand it's a huge impact on the tax rate, and that's where I'm coming from. I'm not suggesting at all that you haven't done, a full effort. I'm just saying the perception is there that you keep on going up, and yet we see things there, even within your own contract.
Christine, if I could just have you come up and clarify. I just want to get it clear in my head, and maybe voters too. So if Article 4 does not pass, and let's say 5 and 6 do. Let's just say 50% is going to go to those two funds, and Article 4 does not pass. So that's current situation. So explain that, and then if it did pass, explain exactly the difference in where those funds would go if there was some extra money.
Okay, so if we had some extra money, and Article 4 did not pass, then you would be able to put the money away into the next warrant article, which is Article 5, that allows you to put up to 25% or 50,000 into that. So let's say you have 50,000, it would go into that. Then you'd go to the next warrant article, number 6, and if you had 25% or 50,000, it would then go into that, and then that would be the end of it. So Article 4 would not have any impact at all. And if you still had money left over, that would go to reduce your taxes. It's just current business as we're doing right now.
Okay.
If Article 4 passes, there's many options. The school board can decide to take any portion of up to that 323,000. They can take nothing. Okay? Then what would happen before that, if Article 5 and 6 passed, those would go first still. So 5 would still be funded at 50,000 or 25%. Article 6 would be funded at 50,000 or 25%. Whatever's left over would be up to the school board to make a decision based on what they think would be the right situation to do. They can put $0, they can put $1, they can put $50. They can put $323 or whatever we have in there, but that's the cap that they would put in.
Okay.
So they don't have to put anything in the first year.
Let's do Blue and then Russ.
It's a real quick question. Is the 2.5% based on paying the funds first, or what's left over?
Good question.
I'm just wondering.
No, it's unrelated.
If you have a surplus, you're going to pay the funds first no matter what.
Correct.
Okay, so now you're left with X amount of change. Is that 2.5? Is that the 2.5%?
Yes.
That's capped?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so you always pay the funds first.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yep. So it's very little.
Russ and then Cliff.
Exactly. I'm sorry, but if we had a 323,000, that would either tell you that I, as the business administrator, did not do a very good job, or we had some big changes in our revenues coming in, because that's a lot of money that we've never seen. I mean, as you've seen this year, I just returned, 98,000 from my general fund, and I had some extra revenues, that came in that were miscellaneous. So no year have we ever had, since I've been here, that excessive that the school board would take that money.
Russ and then Cliff, is that the way it was?
I'm going to choose to sort of disagree a little bit, only to the extent that last year we had $200,000. That was a surplus. And 150,000 of that went to 3 funds, which was 25% to those 3. And because the 4th fund wasn't voted for, 50,000, I think it was 48,000, went back as a credit against taxes. So whatever happens, roulette wheel, wild card in any particular year, we happen to have a $200,000 net surplus last year, of which 150,000 went into 3 funds at 25% apiece, and 48 went as a credit to the taxpayers. The year before, I think we had 200 and some odd thousand that was given to a credit for the taxpayers because a warrant article was not funded or something like that. So there is a bit of history. And all I'd say on this one is the way this is constructed by reading all the warrant articles is whatever the surplus is, X, 25% of X could be $1, but no more than 50,000 would go to Fund A first. Same for Fund B, because there's only 2 funds, and automatically 50% of the surplus would be available to either go back to the taxpayer if we didn't vote on this article, or for the school to take all or some of that up to a limit of 2.5%.
Okay, we all, sorry, Cliff, you had some more.
I had a couple of questions I think that Christine probably is the best person to answer. And I guess the first one is in follow-up to Russ, which is I'd like a reminder of where our surplus came from last year. And the second one is, starts with an apology. I think, I don't recall if you got into tonight what the 2.5% of what? It's the last fiscal year, or current fiscal year's net assessment, which is a little bit of a term of art for me. I don't really, it was explained to me once. I couldn't explain it to myself, so I'm asking you if you could
Sure.
review that, please.
So to answer the first question, most of our fund balance came from unanticipated revenues last year. We received more CAD aid and Medicaid than we anticipated, and we had about $89,000 left from the general fund that was unexpended.
Great.
So, and to answer the second question, I'm going to try to keep this in layman's terms as much as possible. It's very complicated. The net assessment is the district's assessment, so which is what is raised. It's what's locally raised for your tax dollar, okay? And then you add in the statewide education tax. You add those two together, and that gives you the 2.5%. You multiply that by 2.5%. The district assessment plus the statewide education, which is also raised locally. You add those two together, and you multiply by 2.5%.
Russ?
Just to make sure I understand. Let's say we have a $16 million budget, which we're about talking about, but only 11 of it comes from taxes. The other
Correct.
5 million comes from other revenue sources. And then there's $2.5 million in the state tax kitty, approximately. or
Not,
2
you
million.
talk about the adequacy or the state?
The state tax, which I thought
Because
you
there's
said was
two. We have a
added in.
state tax,
Right.
which is what gets calculated, and there's a state education tax, which does not get part of that calculation.
Okay.
So the 1.7 that we receive from the state education tax, that gets added to the district assessment, and
Okay,
then multiplied by 2.5.
So basically, we'd be saying we had a 16 million operating budget, 11 million we raised in taxes, 1.7 comes from the state, so we'd have about $12 million at 2.5%
Correct.
to establish what our fund is.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, I think, are we ready to call a vote on this one? Oh, you had a question?
No,
Sorry.
they call the question.
Oh, okay. Very good.
I think
Okay,
they've beaten us
fund
to
balance.
death.
Cliff Chase,
Aye.
Dave Foltz,
Aye.
Blue Foster,
Aye.
Dana Glennon,
Nay.
Drew Kiefaber,
Aye.
Michael Lang,
Aye.
Larry Pickering,
Nay.
Judy Ryan,
Nay.
Russ Simon,
Nay.
Ellen Snyder, nay. Amy Thompson.
Nay.
All right, what did we get there? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 5. So it not recommended 5 to 6. That's, I think, how we say it. Is that right? All right. That one's just confusing enough to cause confusion. Okay. On to number 5.
Is it 5 and 6?
No, I think we'll do each one separately. They're explained together, but there's two separate articles. So number 5 is to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate 1/4, 25% of any June 30th, 2013 fund balance up to $50,000 to be added to the repair and maintenance of school facilities expendable trust fund established in 2004 under the provisions of RSA 198-20-C for the purpose of repairs and maintenance of school facilities, recommended by the school board 5-0, no tax impact. I'd like, oh, sorry.
Did you want to make a motion?
Sure, we can make a motion and then discuss. Sure, let's go for it. You want to make a motion?
Make a motion to recommend what Ellen just read.
Yes. Second?
I'll second that.
Dana?
Oh, I'm sorry, I think Dave did. I think Dave.
Oh, Dave, did you second that?
I tried, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Dave, I'll give it to you.
Sorry.
Something.
I'm sorry. You gotta
You're good.
really yell. We can't
Did
see
you
your
have your hand up, Dave?
We can't see your hand, so sorry. Okay. All right, discussion. I actually, I have a question. So can you explain, I know it came up at the public hearing about the elementary school the other night, and I'm just want to be clear about how this might affect, obviously there's a lot of things that need to happen at the elementary school overtime now and overtime perhaps. And does this in any way relate to those repairs and maintenance, or what does this fund address?
I don't think they're hearing
I think they're discussing who should.
you.
The repair and maintenance fund is specifically for that in both schools, and one of the things over the past years that we've been doing is taking a look at, is there a portion of those funds that we could use to make improvements at the elementary school? And so some months ago, we were talking about a 3-year plan of replacing the windows, because that's a priority for us. But something that happened earlier this year was a significant degrading of our control systems on our heat, both the main panel as well as controls in the individual rooms. And so we've had some estimate done of the amount of work it will take, and so that alone has elevated it to being a high priority for us. The estimate right now is, I think, about $120,000 to complete all of that work. And it's work that would be done in the summer, and because it would take some time. And so we've been talking with the board about doing that. You see $133,000 that's in there, and so it eats up almost all of that and leaves very little in reserve for any other emergency. We're in the process now of still getting more clear bids on the work to be done to know exactly, but it's in that vicinity.
Okay, thank you. Okay, other questions, comments? Russ and then Cliff. Michael, did you raise your hand? Okay, Russ and then Cliff.
Yeah, I'll just be consistent. I appreciate refurbishing. I think it's something we should do a lot more of every year and should have done for the past 10 years. I applaud technology that we need to be able to, but we should have that in our normal operating budget. I have to come out the same way, though, I did on the other new fund, which is this year with everything that's going on. I'd like to be able to, with the increase in the operating budget, the looming potential new school, I'd just like to keep the powder dry for a year and see where we come out, and I think we can all make better decisions. But to pledge money with those other issues still unresolved in front of us, it just makes me a little uncomfortable in this 1 year, though I think on a long-term basis, both funds are very rational.
Cliff and then Dana.
Do my best to be really brief. There are several funds that aren't listed here. One was the expansion of school facilities fund, technology, and I'm forgetting perhaps another one.
Utilities. They're over on the left there, I think, actually.
Right,
And I
thanks.
think-
I'm just looking at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
one page. These funds were set up initially, actually, at the recommendation of a prior budget committee. I'm not sure how long ago. I want to say about 50 years for the, at least for the expansion of school facilities.
50 years ago?
That's when that fund was established, yep, in 1964.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, what was that fund?
Makes me
The
feel old.
expansion.
The expansion of school facilities, which is not on the warrant. The school board felt we needed to, I'll quote Russ again, to give it a rest, and limit to what we see as our most vital needs and the things that have the most potential impact to cause fluctuation to the tax rate. And so that's why we're just looking at the repair and maintenance and the special education articles. Thanks.
I forgot, lost track of who was next. Was it Dana? Dana.
Dr. Hayes, what impact immediately is this having on the school population?
What is this?
The heat controlling?
Yeah, all of the most pressing issue you see. I know the windows are one, and is there something that we could possibly do? Because I agree with Russ. I have a concern of establishing more trust, set up additional trust funds, not knowing what's going to happen in a month and a half. But again, I do agree with you that we need to address, like the windows issues. And certainly I've heard rumors the furnace is a big issue, and that there are students walking around with jackets on, which is, to me, unacceptable. But if something had to be eliminated, what could you live with so this could be reduced a little bit?
I'm not sure I know what you mean by be eliminated.
Well,
I mean,
maybe put off for another year.
Of one of these warrants, well, to me, I look at them as insurance policies. because we don't have money in the budget to cover the disasters. And special ed is going to be greatly eaten up. And then Article 5, repair and maintenance, is likely going to be gone by the summer to a great extent. So that's how I look at those trust funds, as insurance against unanticipated problems. So I wouldn't recommend, moving from these two. I think that's why the board brought them there. They feel the urgency, and so do I.
Are you done? I'm going to follow up.
No, I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's my understanding that it's an existing fund. We're not creating a new one. We want to put, it says to put up to 50,000 of surplus, so it's not coming out of new tax impact. And it seems to me we've heard a lot about the needs at the elementary school. So it seems like this is probably a pretty needed investment. If we don't do it now, we're going to run into the same situation. Obviously, we'll never catch up in terms of probably the needs there for a long time, but I think this seems like a pretty important need. So I would support this. Any other? Drew?
Sure, I'm gonna cover 5 and 6 in one shake. That is, I've supported these as a budget committee member in the past, and I'll be doing that again. I think it's prudent.
Other comments? Okay, we'll call the roll on Article 5. Cliff Chase.
Aye.
Dave Foltz.
Aye.
Lou Foster.
Aye.
Dana Glennon.
Aye.
Drew Kiefaber.
Aye.
Michael Lang.
Aye.
Larry Pickering. Judy Ryan.
Nay.
Russ Simon.
Nay.
Ellen Snyder, aye. Amy Thompson.
Aye.
Okay, we had 2 noes, so we have a 9-2 recommended by the Budget Committee.
That was on just Article 5,
That was
right?
just Article 5.
Okay.
Okay, we are on our last article. I don't think we have to vote on Article 7. That's something else. Article 5, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate 1/4, 25% of any June 30th, 2013 fund balance surplus up to $50,000 to be added to the Special Education Capital Reserve Fund established in 2004 under the provisions of RSA 35 L-B or 1-B for the purpose of educating disabled children. Recommended by the school board 5-0, no tax impact. Okay, I think we've heard a lot of explanation about these. Any discussion?
make a
Oh, sorry,
motion.
motion?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend Article 6 as read.
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion.
How come you didn't read this? Repair and
I did.
maintenance. You did?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
No, we're on 6. We're done here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Article 6. Discussion. Cliff?
I think much was said on the prior warrant article that applies here, and it seems kind of quiet. I'd love to move the vote.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. Okay, very good. Cliff Chase.
Aye.
Dave Foltz.
Aye.
Blue Foster.
Aye.
Dana Glennon.
Aye.
Drew Kiefaber.
Aye.
Michael Lang.
Aye.
Larry Pickering.
Aye.
Judy Ryan.
Aye.
Russ Simon.
Nay.
Ellen Snyder, aye. Amy Thompson.
Nay.
Okay, we had 2 nays.
9-2.
9-2 again. Recommended by the Budget Committee.
One of them was constant, one of them was
Woo!
floating.
We finished. Excellent. Good job, everybody.
Don't anybody get up.
We have some more things to do, so,
Can I just make one comment?
sure.
I just want to make one comment, because earlier when we were talking about the tax rate, I made a comment that if all the warrant articles passed was $18.54. That did not include the bond article, because we're not talking about it tonight. So I just wanted to go on record to make sure that everybody knew that that was not to take into consideration.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Okay, thank you, Dr. Hayes and Christine and other folks who've come for this. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And we'll see you Tuesday.
Spreadsheet.
7 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have any copy of that new sheet that you gave us today?
Okay, let me find my agenda. You still with us, Dave?
Yeah, I just found out.
All right, thank you. You haven't had dinner yet or something, I think.
I'm an hour behind you guys, so I'm fine.
Oh, that's right.
Lucky.
Good.
He spoke up pretty quickly for being an hour behind.
All right. We have to approve the December 17th minutes. Does everybody have those?
I
No.
don't think any of our names were mentioned there, so
Yeah,
I'm fine with them.
okay. Motion to approve the December 17th.
I'll motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Second with Michael. Okay, any changes?
Great job as usual, Ellen, thank you.
Yes, Ellen. Good job.
Amazing, amazing.
You don't
capture.
mention our names, we don't have any issues.
Okay, motion, all in favor, sorry, I have to do roll call. We have to say with roll call. Okay, Cliff.
Aye.
Yep. Dave Foltz.
Aye.
Blue Foster.
Is this the adjournment one? No.
So remember, you have to abstain if you weren't there, I think, so just a reminder. Dana Glennon.
I'll do that, abstain.
Okay. Drew Kiefaber.
Aye.
Michael Lang.
Aye.
Larry Pickering.
Aye.
I think you weren't there, Judy.
No, I wasn't there.
Okay, can you say whatever?
Abstain.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, not here.
Russ Simon.
Yo,
Ellen Snyder, aye. Amy Thompson.
Aye.
Okay. Minutes are approved as written. 2 abstentions.
Right.
9 in favor. Okay. Now, we have, we need to vote on the school bond after they have the public hearing, which is, I think, what we wanted to do, which is Tuesday night at 7 PM.
just gave me a little,
Oh, then we're going to do it now? No.
another surprise.
So, we can, we have to do it next week because they have to be posted the following Monday, I believe.
How come we could do the water one tonight and not the school one?
We could have done the school one tonight, but I think it's such a big.
I'm not saying it was mine, I was
Right,
just.
right.
Okay.
I think originally the idea was that the public hearing on the water was gonna be maybe next week, but it turned out it's not for a couple more weeks, so.
I got you.
Okay, so we can either all go to the public hearing and stay until the bitter end and vote at the end of the public hearing.
No,
This is Tuesday, right?
This is, Monday's a holiday.
Yep.
Of course, the Tuesday is a bond hearing. Wednesday night is a council meeting. Thursday night I know I'm pretty sure is available. Nobody, I don't think, has a conflict Thursday night.
I have a conflict.
You have a conflict, okay.
Economic Development Committee is Thursday.
I actually have a
Okay.
conflict with that night, too.
Okay.
I'm away.
But we could do it,
So we could do it earlier, or we could do it the night of the bond hearing. I'm just entertaining any thoughts.
I mean, I'm good with the 21st for the
Depends
bond
on
hearing.
how late that goes
I
on
could
the
do it.
21st, because I have a conflict from 6 o'clock on
6 o'clock on what night?
the 21st.
What time is the bond?
So you won't be at the bond hearing?
Well, with the.
I don't know.
What time does it start?
7
Seven.
PM?
All right, so 7 PM.
I actually prefer to see what happens at the bond
Little
hearing
more time to
and
digest
absorb that,
after?
Yeah.
rather than be
That
pushed
seems like it would be
into
a late, could be a
vote at
late
the
night.
end
I
of
would
it.
kind of agree to that. Okay, so,
Could we still not meet on the 22nd, but down in the auditorium?
yeah, we'd have to meet earlier because Larry has council at 7.
Okay, so.
If it's only for the bond thing,
How much time do you think we need?
unless we're gonna shoot ourselves in the head, I'd say 6 to 7 sounds like
Can
it's
people
more
meet
than
at
enough
6? Is
time.
that too, can you do 6?
I can do
Six is fine.
6 o'clock on the
I can do
22nd? Okay,
6,
that's
yeah.
okay with,
Yep.
Dave, is,
Yep, that
Jan
works.
22nd?
Nope,
No, on the
that works.
23rd.
Stay in St.
no, this was
Louis,
the 20.
this worked
Oh,
fine.
no, this was gonna be the 22nd, right? Did we, Wednesday?
Yeah,
Wednesday from,
because Larry's. gonna
January
be out of it
22nd
here,
from
so.
6 to 7 PM. And we should be able to meet here, because I don't know, do you guys have a non-public at 6:30? I don't know, we'd have to check. No? Okay. So if there's no non-public, we can meet here from 6 to 7.
That's true, we can,
Of
yeah.
course, if we go over, we'd be in trouble. We'll figure it out.
That would be good to be
Okay.
limited by something.
And
Yeah,
that's,
yeah,
the
yeah.
only agenda item is the school, the new school warrant.
Article 1.
Right, so that'll be Article 1. So just to, I had an email today from Charter Commission people. They are going to do presentations before the, I assume before the deliberative session, before the vote. And they have offered to come and present it to the Budget Committee in February. But we actually don't usually meet in February because we're kind of done after our final vote next week.
We're kind of done, we're kind of shuffling is my thought. and-
I think they're just
and it's-
offering if
it's
we have
also
regular
some
meetings.
Codification, not a lot applies to the committee, but I'm not going to say that we as citizens are not interested, so
Yeah,
that's
that-
just my input.
I was going to say, Phil is going to present it Wednesday night at
Okay.
the town council
Okay.
meeting. If you're through and you wanted to go up, you could hear the presentation then.
That makes a lot of That makes a lot of sense.
Is everybody okay if we don't meet in February to hear that?
Are they
Because
willing to provide refreshments?
Town water from the
What night
Macintosh well,
are
I
they
think.
suggesting?
As long as
we
it's
hear?
it's
Wednesday
not
night?
that
can be
water
swayed.
down cellar.
during a presentation next Wednesday, this coming, the
This coming Wednesday.
22nd, the same
Okay,
night.
So we would be here for our meeting.
And is there a
And then
public
could
hearing
stay.
date set up for this as well?
No, we're meeting
Yeah.
on the bond.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we have a major strategic change in 47 places of our town charter, but that doesn't require a public meeting before you vote on it? That's a strange set of interesting circumstances.
I don't know, you have to ask the
It's
charter.
actually 18.
Let's get the town council meeting.
Okay.
Huh?
I think we can have a motion to adjourn.
So
Oh,
moved.
sorry, wait, sorry. Whoops.
With all due respect to what happened but at the beginning of this meeting, I think we need to set precedent on when somebody's absent. I don't want to have an argument like that again coming into a meeting. I didn't know Judy was going to be absent. I didn't know you were going to be absent. And I didn't know Dave was going to be absent. I think it's better for us as a committee with this chair to just set up an agreement that if somebody is out and they want to call in, they're more than welcome to. I can guarantee you, I'm going on vacation in February with my kids to Florida. I am not calling in. I'm telling you that now. But I think we need to set something, a standard. That way, there's no confusion in the future.
Or just follow the regulations going forward.
Whatever those
Well,
regulations
you know,
are,
I think Blue
it's up
brings
to the
up
committee.
the way Steve read it, and by the way, just to clarify, it wasn't the issue. I think it's a great issue, should have been done years ago.
Correct, correct.
Okay. It's just the consistency, especially on voting nights, that make that.
I did
to
not
be a
know
big
Dave
issue.
was going to be absent tonight, so it would be nice if we walk in, we
Absolutely.
have Dave is on
So,
the phone today, and we
if-
know he can vote.
If you want to make a motion, I'll
we
be
need to
more
make
than
a
happy
motion,
to
do we?
second it, that says going forward, if people can call in and attend a meeting that way, then they have the right to call in and participate in any votes.
I like
As
that
long-
motion.
Can I just make a friendly amendment? Well, let's have a second.
I'll second it.
Second, okay. Friendly amendment, actually, we called them, just to make
set it
it
up.
the procedure proper.
Just-
I know, but it has to be at the
Yeah,
motion.
no, and according to the law, so we don't violate it. I'll throw that.
Okay, any more discussion? We have to do a roll call again. Sorry, I have to get my sheet out. Okay, Cliff Chase. Dave Foltz.
Aye.
Blue Foster.
I can see you still there.
Dana Glennon.
Aye.
Drew Kiefaber.
Aye.
Michael Lang.
Aye.
Larry Pickering.
Aye.
Judy Ryan. Russ Simon.
You betcha.
Ellen Snyder, aye. Amy Thompson.
Aye.
Thank you, Blue, for bringing that back up. I think that's right. Okay, now we have to, you have another
No,
issue?
I just want to make a comment because it happened during the budget meeting on Monday evening, and I don't want to deliberate and go on and on about it. However, I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention the unfortunate situation that happened Monday night with a couple of individuals who were sitting in the audience who actually, felt the need to make comments about our senior citizens, and that if they find it too difficult to live in this town, that they should possibly move on and move into another town. That was disconcerting to me, and I think it was inappropriate. I had wished, and I'm not faulting you, Madam Chair, but I wish you had had a gavel at that point and slammed it and said, that is inappropriate to make those comments about citizens. In addition to that, there were 3 individuals who were in the close to the front row who actually laughed at Mr. Porter-Rotter. They are people in very prominent positions in this town, and that was uncalled for. So the senior citizens in our town are why we are where we are today. They're the glue, they're the mortar, they're the ones who work to help us get where we are today. And rather insulting them and laughing at them, we should be standing and applauding them. That's it.
I'll just follow up. I think,
It's a motion, I'll second it.
But don't stand.
Don't stand.
I just want to follow up because as chair, I think we all at times say things or do things that we probably would regret. And I understand I've had my share. So I would just say that I think we all can self-reflect and be as respectful as we can to everybody on the board you serve on and the people in the community. Because I don't think that was the only time that that's happened. So I'll just go with that. I think we've had a great meeting tonight. I really appreciate it. And unfortunately, we still have to do a roll call to adjourn, a motion, and then a roll call.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, Cliff Chase.
I enjoy voting first. Aye.
Dave Foltz.
Aye.
Lou Foster.
Aye.
Dana Glennon.
Aye.
Drew Kefeber.
Aye.
Michael Lang.
Aye.
Larry Pickering.
Aye.
Judy Ryan. Russ Simon.
Absolutely.
Ellen Snyder, aye. Amy Thompson.
I can't eat anymore
Thank you,
of
Errol
that
Petty.
Absolutely.
stuff. Might die.